Welcome everybody to the Go Wellness Collaborative. Welcome. It is February 2025, and we're going to be diving into some really cool stuff. So last month, if you missed the collaborative, you missed out on a really good, impactful one. We dove into some really cool stuff that we learned and have grown through 2024. And so we're going to continue learning some really cool stuff. Today, we'll dive into some muscle building, GLPs. We got a special guest coming on to talk regenerative medicine, innovation, and his words exactly. We got some cool shit to cover. And so, yeah, I'm excited.
Dan, maybe you could talk a little bit about the history of GLP-1s, why they're important, why people hate them. There's a lot of haters in the GLP world. There's also a lot of lovers. I happen to be a lover of them.
So the surprising thing is, this is a compound that's made in the gut. We have these cells in our gut called L cells, and they produce GLP-1, and it has a lot of different mechanisms. And when they started looking at these things, they started finding that it improved insulin sensitivity, the insulin responses, and because it slows down gastric emptying, it helped people with calorie restriction without actually trying to calorie restrict. So looking at the origin of developing these things into a medication or into like the peptides that we're using, I think it's probably one of the most surprising thing. It's been one of the few developments that I've seen that I'm super in favor of.
I've often shared about my patient who has he tried to lose weight for years, and he even got to the point where he had a live-in chef and a live-in trainer. So they watched every single calorie that went into his body, and he was exercising, and he went from like 220 to about 185 and just stuck there. And 185 for someone, he was 5'4", it was just still, he was about 30 or 40 pounds over ideal. Until I introduced him to tirzepatide, and then the weight came off, and it's been off for about 2 years. And he's on melanotan, so he's like my walking billboard. Very well-known person, and it's interesting because a lot of us, we think, well, we just need to eat better and exercise more, but man, there's some confounding issues. So Dan, what percentage of your clients would you say have some kind of metabolic disease?
Easy, probably 65 to 70%.
Sheesh, 65 to 70%. And what are the big traps that get them into that metabolic imbalance?
I'd say there's probably a few different things, especially when we're looking at the labs, for anyone that's tuning in, it doesn't always look like is a metabolic trap because their glucose and their A1C may look normal, but they'll have that metabolic shift of increased triglycerides, increased LDL, decreased HDL, overall cholesterol is high, and that HDL triglyceride ratio, which is so important.
All right, so let's talk semaglutide. This is also known as Ozempic, and this is where we're starting to identify the Ozempic face in Hollywood actors primarily. But the Ozempic face is, when you're in a caloric deficit and when you've lost a certain amount, certain volume of fat, you're naturally going to have a more sunken face, which can make people look older, or make them look more sophisticated. But really, what do you think the problem was and is with Ozempic, or just using semaglutide?
Well, I think when you're in a calorie deficit, you're typically also in a micronutrient deficit. And that's something that we are seeing is people if they're not paying attention to their electrolyte intake, maintaining the water, being able that osmotic, pressure in their body, and then some micronutrient deficiencies over time. Because a lot of these people, because you'll see if they're not paying attention to those things, or they're not doing like a BPC or, something to maintain lean muscle mass or maintaining activity, they'll get bone loss and muscle density loss. They're actually deficient, right? Anytime you lose weight in your face, you may look older. I mean, the ideal picture of youth is a cherub. It's these pudgy ass little babies, right?
And so if your patients aren't like if they're still sedentary, the lymphatic systems get so backed up. And the lymph system is this magical repository of waste. And it also is what's cleaning out your plasma. And
Yeah.
so you'll see as people lose weight, and Dan, you taught me this, but it was like, don't be alarmed when people are losing weight and their markers look worse. You run their blood labs and their cholesterol markers or triglycerides are going to be off the charts, and you're going to be like, you're not following the diet, even though you look great, but then you realize like it's all the toxic matter that's being released. And so give it time and it will clear up.
Yeah.
But if you don't look at things holistically when you're working on losing weight, it's going to come right back. And I
No,
think
and that's why, yeah. And that's why, I think this is definitely why, and because this was like before, I think my time and your time, because people started doing detoxes for weight loss. I don't think detoxes were ever the source for weight loss. I think they were the solution for the plateau in weight loss because you break down the fat, you get these circulating toxins, all this stuff's going filtered through the liver. The liver's all those liver hepatic biotransformation pathways like sulfation and cetylation are the same pathways used for thyroid hormone activation. And
yeah,
so you're utilizing these pathways, which ends up backing up the liver, down regulating metabolism because of the work on the liver. So what do? You support the liver, you start giving what it needs to have better clearance, and then all of a sudden that weight loss picks back up. But that's what we talk about. That's the holistic approach, right?
yeah. And people forget you can hate on the GLP-1s, you can call it cheating. I've heard a lot of people, oh, they're cheating. It's like, well, it depends on what you're using it for. And it also depends on how you're using it. And are you using like just foundational principles of functional medicine? Because what a lot of people don't realize is, yeah, you do need to get out in the sun. You do need to go move your body. You do need to get some kind of like recovery going on. You need to lift some heavy things. And we shifted. We were on semaglutide in the office doing real microdosing. And then when we shifted to tirzepatide, that's when predictability just went through the roof. So do me a favor on the perplexity and plug in. Let's just do a fun little exercise and look at the difference. How much more effective was tirzepatide than semaglutide in the clinical trials? So one of the studies, and as Dan's pulling this up, there we go.
It's crazy.
All right, so let's see it. Okay, significantly more.
Yeah.
Okay, so patients taking tirzepatide were 1.76 times more likely to achieve greater than 5% weight loss, 2.54 times more likely to achieve over 10%, and 3.2 times more likely to achieve over 15% weight loss compared to those taking semaglutide. Whoa.
Yeah.
The one study, 82% of the participants taking tirzepatide noticed, over a 5% reduction in weight loss compared to 66% in semaglutide.
They're even finding, in studies on college athletes that a majority of them have early stage fatty liver. And yet they still, everything that you would think that still appears that they have healthy insulin sensitivity. And these are college athletes.
Is that just the food they're eating or what is it?
Yeah, food, the quality of the foods, the calories, the preservatives that are in those foods. There's quite a few things in there. Their metabolism's high. They're burning through some stuff, but there's some things that are accumulating, just interfering with the liver breakdown, and that the glucose intake. It seems to be more calories than anything else.
Huge. Yeah, I love it when you hear professional athletes and you see what their diets are. And man, it's just fast food, garbage, and it's crazy.
I mean, over the years, you and I have talked about that. We both had pro athletes come into the office, and it's crazy because these teams will pay them millions of dollars a year, and when we run their labs, it's amazing they're able to perform at the level that they are based on what their metrics are looking like. It's crazy.
And then on the muscle building, so NA 931. Now, this is oral, and in the trials, it's pretty phenomenal because this is four agonists. This is like retatrutide plus IGF-1. I'm excited about this. There's a company, I believe it's in Singapore. They're pushing to get this into, I think they're just starting the phase 3 clinical trials. But they're actually utilizing NA931. One of the tracks that they're studying it on is for alcoholism and addiction. And I think it's going to be amazing. I think in recovery centers, NA931 is a big one because they realize that they want to help people build muscle while they're losing weight. So far, it looks very favorable. And IGF-1, I mean, this is like if you think of the growth hormone releasing peptides, like when it comes to muscle mass and muscle building, it's like we've used these all along. Dan, what would you say the growth hormone secretagogue that you've used the most and that you're currently using the most in your practice? What are they?
Tesamorelin, without a doubt.
It's the best one. I mean, it's a longer chain, just robust. But the one that I've probably liked the most of all the growth hormone peptides is IGF-1. It's just makes you feel young, makes you feel like really light on your feet. IGF-1 is one of the best nootropics. It's not typically not bundled into the nootropic category, but if you think of the BDNF activity, when you have active levels of IGF-1, it is the key that unlocks the gene for BDNF expression. Once you get IGF-1 levels up, the brain starts becoming a lot more active and lucid and clear. So what the researchers are doing with this NA931 is they're just one of the things they're adding the IGF-1, and they're saying that not only does it cause in the mouse models a decrease in energy intake and an increase in energy expenditure. So they're using more energy but not consuming more energy. They see a decrease in blood glucose and body weight. And we're seeing the same in humans where they're actually gaining volumes of muscle. So it's a pretty interesting peptide.
We will be back next month, everybody. We'll continue
Thanks,
this
boss.
collaborative. Thanks, everybody. For those of you that maybe aren't currently in our membership portal, you can click this link, learn a little bit more about what your options are there. I think this can be a very good way to continue to learn. You can have your team watch these recordings, as well as you can jump into the Peptide Advantage course. Really get some deep dive and more module organized courses on this. But appreciate you guys. We will see you next month, same time, same place, and have an amazing one from now. We'll see you guys all next time. Bye-bye.